Hi, I'm George Gerbo, and welcome to Washington Times Weekly, where we get a chance to sit down with our reporters and talk about their coverage of the latest news and events. And to do so this week is Washington Times digital reporter Vaughn Cockane. Vaughn, it's good to see you.
Hi, George. How you doing today?
Doing well, doing well. A lot of foreign affairs topics to dive into that you cover pretty extensively for us here at the Times. We'll start with Iran reaching an agreement with the International Atomic Energy Agency, the IAEA, on resuming inspections at uranium enrichment facilities. Those facilities in Iran have suffered a lot of bombardments between Israeli bombs as well as the United States attack that came after Iran blew through the previous deadline that President Trump had issued for a deal on a nuclear agreement. Are we any closer now that Iran is going to let inspectors back into the country to look at their sites and to review their uranium sites? Are we any closer? Does that help portend perhaps a nuclear deal on the horizon?
Well, it's really unclear the details of the agreement between Iran and the Atomic Energy Association. I mean, it's really unclear at this moment. The only thing we're really clear on are the conditions, in that Iran has said pretty explicitly that if Iran is attacked or if the snapback sanctions come down at the end of the 30-day timeline, then all nuclear inspections will be off. I've seen some analysis that have said that the inspections won't happen before the 30-day timeline expires, before snapback sanctions are supposed to come back down. So it's really unclear whether or not it will really create it will open more doors for a deal. It's really unclear at this time, especially considering there are two other demands from E3 nations that Iran has failed to meet, namely renegotiating with the United States, reopening negotiations, and accounting for their nuclear stockpiles, their uranium stockpiles, which they reported earlier this week that they're unable to do, possibly because of the rubble and the damage done to the three main uranium enrichment sites.
Let's stay in the region with Israel and their recent extremely provocative attack on Hamas officials, but those Hamas officials were in Qatar, and that's angered both the Qataris and the United States, who it's now put the U.S. in a precarious position as it was using Qatar as what it calls an ally to help broker some accords and agreements. Qatar in the past has been there when the U.S. negotiated how it was going to withdraw, albeit chaotically, from Afghanistan a few years ago. And now the Qataris are still in this kind of mediator type position. And so Israel attacks what they believe are senior Hamas leaders in Qatar. Hamas says that none of their senior leaders were killed, but it still represents, Vaughn, a pretty dramatic escalation of tensions in this Israel-Hamas war that's been going on now for some time.
That's right, George. Qatar, as you mentioned, enjoyed a kind of immunity from strikes, and it's enjoyed a kind of mediator status both between the United States, Israel, and Hamas. Importantly, the development this week, later after the strikes, was that Washington Post columnist David Ignatius reported that a unnamed Qatari source told him that both Mossad, Israel's spy agency, and the White House had promised Qatar that Israel would not strike at Hamas officials residing in Qatar. Importantly, they received that assurance after the chief of the IDF, Eyal Zamir, said on August 31st that Israel was intending to strike at abroad Hamas officials, and notably, most of Hamas's key officials are residing in Qatar. It's a really strange confusion. Notably, Mossad's chief, David Barina, was known to travel in between Israel and Qatar frequently while the ongoing peace talks were happening. Qatar has obviously mediated quite a few of the rounds of peace talks between Hamas and Israel over the past couple months. So really, we don't know what will happen here. Obviously, the international community has mostly condemned this, including the White House, who seemed not entirely sidelined. President Trump said he knew about the attack beforehand and told the Qataris before the strike happened. But yeah, it's a developing situation. We really don't know exactly what this strike will mean for the future of hostage negotiations between Hamas and Israel and a peace deal in the Gaza region.
Let's wrap up with China, which so much so in recent years has asserted its dominance in the global economy. And one of those parts of the economy that it's taken control of is rare earth metals, those metals that are used in so many different applications that we're really not familiar with or aware of, such as batteries and electronics and computer chips. And these metals, which are buried in the soil and have to be gleaned out of the soil, are going into so many products that Americans use and people around the world use on a daily basis. And China really has a dominance on that market. And because of that, Vaughn, as you talked about recently, it could put the United States at kind of a strategic disadvantage as the U.S. races to catch up and also find ways to glean these metals out of resources here in the States, as opposed to having to get them from abroad.
Right. I was covering this story after Threat Status interviewed Nick Myers, who's the CEO of Phoenix Tailings, which deals in processing these rare earth minerals. And rare earth minerals are different metals. Rare earth metals are different from traditional metals used in productions because they have to be processed. They are reactive in nature. And so that process is extremely expensive and requires a lot of investment and time. China, over the past decade, has spent a lot of time and energy and money in creating and solidifying their status as really the world's leader in rare earth mineral processing. And that's left the United States at a real disadvantage because, again, like I said, this is a very difficult process that takes years to develop a real substantive industry behind it. And as you said before, these minerals, these metals are used in anything from headphone wires to cell phones, all the way up to naval destroyers and cruise missiles. So if the United States is at a real disadvantage here when it comes to processing, China can really exert in the next couple of years some real influence and pressure, both economically and militarily, on the United States. We really haven't seen exactly where this could go. But again, as the world watches a developing situation in Taiwan and Southeast Asia, if China is able to exert any kind of pressure economically or militarily on the United States, we'll definitely see it in the next decade over these rare earth minerals issue.
Excellent reporting, Vaughn. I appreciate the time. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, George.
You can find all of Vaughn's work at WashingtonTimes.com and on social media. I'm George Gerbo. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.